Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my AM reading video for Friday, March 13th, 2026, going up on a Saturday. Although if I'm being honest, it's not only that it's going up on a Saturday, I'm also filming on Saturday. So I'm a little behind, just slightly behind with my BookTube reading schedule. I wanted to go ahead and finish one book at least to start off my AM reading videos for March, and now here I am trying to squeeze in filming a video before starting the rest of my day, which means I'm filming during the bad time, when right now the light is casting me completely into shadow. But I have limited time and also very limited battery, it seems. More limited than I thought when I turned on the camera, so I really got to stop rambling and get on to what should hopefully be a short and sweet video. As always with my AM reading videos, I am starting by recapping a short story from a literary journal. I don't know how you could possibly see this edition of Ploughshares from spring 2025, but that indeed is what this is. And I read this week Koro-Koro by Cynthia Gralla. This is a historical short story taking place, well, mostly technically speaking in the 1930s, although it's bookended by the early-ish 1940s. We are on an island in Canada where the Japanese have recently been expelled from due to Pearl Harbor, after also, you know, kind of growing nativist anti-Japanese sentiment throughout the years. So we're following a Canadian character named Marie who became friends as a young girl with a Japanese girl named Akira, and learning about their relationship and the beauty of it through these little vignettes that have to do with a herbarium and a Japanese garden. And we like every little section, which is a slightly new year starting from 1932 and going on forward, talks a bit about this Japanese garden. It's also a bit of a lesson into linguistics, and it gives us, that is the insight it gives us into their relationship. And so this is very, I don't know if experimental is the right word, but you know, what it isn't is about interior character development. Maybe the argument for that is that it would be too dramatic, and that this actually is a way to discuss the issues of friendship and xenophobia and you know, the loss that Marie must feel and what Akira experienced too, through these vignettes that focus very heavily on physical description and also sort of learning Japanese words for, you know, different elements of the garden. And, you know, I struggle with that, and then I struggle with how I struggle with that, you know, I do need to get better at just, you know, slowing down my roll a bit so that I can read and really appreciate physical descriptions and linguistics more. So anyway, but, you know, when it does come to characterization, it's more that we're told things about the two of them, other than, you know, them, you know, experiencing, you know, the garden together. But it is, you know, this type of writing as a way to get us into ruminating on this relationship that seemed to be, you know, moving and meaningful to both of them, and how it was, you know, torn asunder by prejudice, and how, you know, Akira and her family were blamed, and, you know, the whole Japanese community were blamed for the actions of, you know, a faraway government. And speaking as an American Jew today, I certainly understand what that feels like. The first book I finished this month is Fiona and Jane by Chen. This is also a series of vignettes of short stories, some of which Chen published in magazines before this collection came together, that chronicles this duo of Taiwanese American friends, starting when they met, or even before they met technically, as they were young children in Southern California, and then it takes them through the next 20 or so years until they're, you know, reaching up to 40 of their lives and their experiences, you know, sometimes or often they're even apart from one another in these different stories that mostly go back and forth between Jane as a first-person narrator and Fiona as a third-person narrator. And I liked them. I thought there were pretty solid ruminations, maybe nothing too groundbreaking. There's a lot about relationships, and, they cycle through a lot of them, and a lot about struggling to sort of find out who you are and to, find a career and, a future for yourself. And there's stuff about, relations with parents and their backstories and how that impacts these two young girls to women throughout, a lot of the years of their lives. And so it's interesting too, because sometimes, the stories could be contained in different ways, but you can sort of relate them to what you know about the characters from earlier stories. And so Fiona came from an immigrant family with lesser means. She followed a boy during college to New York and went to grad school to become a lawyer for a while, but it was upended when a friend of theirs actually got cancer and they became caretakers, and their relationship kind of went south. And Jane dealt with a coming out that maybe is a little dramatic, because first what happened is she visited her estranged father in Taiwan, who had decided basically ostensibly not to come home because he was going to live with his boyfriend there. And then Jane goes home to her mother in Southern California and is ruminating on her feelings toward her piano teacher. Later comes out to a gay high school friend. Jane is bisexual, and maybe I might quibble that it seems like her relationships to men feel more fleshed out than her relationships to women. And she also stays in Southern California and works a lot of kind of odd jobs and seems kind of at loose ends. So I think a lot of what's ultimately sort of ruminated on with her is her relationship with her father, which is very estranged from that point forward, and her father ultimately commits suicide. So maybe that's the strongest part of the Jane stories of what we're experiencing with her. Or maybe it's the fact that they're vignettes and sort of contain short stories that, the character throughways are never, fully a throughway, because it's not a traditional novel. But we do get interesting insights into their lives, and, I feel like it's an interesting way to talk about how such a formative relationship between Fiona and Jane, could go dormant for many years, but then they have something to come back to, and you can kind of, remember what they had as young children and in high school and what have you, as they find themselves back again in the same place, when they get into their 30s. So, yeah, I ultimately liked it. I think the ending was a little too pat. The last story is Fiona and Jane. And I guess another thing about Jane is she is and always has been a struggling writer, and she tried to sell scripts to Hollywood. And, one thing that would have been nice, like she talked about writing sci-fi scripts or anything like that. And I wish that, as a character, maybe she actually showed more interest in the genre, or at least in Hollywood media or something, but that wasn't really in this story either. And I thought the ending of this was a little pat, where really, like on the last page, she's saying, maybe I'll write about us. Maybe I'll call it Jane and Fiona. No, Fiona and Jane. It's a little pat. But other than that, I do feel like there were some really, nice ruminations on, these two girls who, from the scant references, seems like they were growing up around the time I was also growing up, so there is that as well. And the final book I'll hold up, if you can even see it at all, is A River Alive by Robert Macfarlane. And this is where he ruminates on the science of rivers, and hopefully also a little bit maybe into some poetry or mythology, like the last book of his I read for the BookTube Prize. And that's where I'll stop talking about this book, because I am also officially reading it as a judge for the BookTube Prize. So the BookTube Prize was started by Robert Sheard in 2019 as a way for the literary bookternet to come together and judge the best of literary fiction and nonfiction published in English in the US the year before. So here in 2026, we are judging 2025 releases. We are in the first of 4 rounds, where we whittle down 2 long lists in each of our divisions, all the way down to winners and runners-up come, September, October. So I, for these octafinals, am judging nonfiction ballot G, where I pitched this book against 5 others in my ballot, about which 3 I want to move on to the next round, the quarterfinals. But as we are in the, well, middle-ish of the round, I have to zip my lips so as not to influence fellow judges. But if you want more information, I did make a preliminary video about all of the books in my round before I started reading, so I can link to that video down below, as well as a link to the BookTube prize. So that about covers it for me now. Does seem like the sun is slowly inching in on me. Maybe the shadow would ultimately go away, but I will be long gone and editing this video, I hope, and starting my day before all of that happens. You should expect me back here on this channel in the near future for a mock reads video. Mock reads is my response to the Goodreads Choice Awards, taking away the, you know, first round where you used to be able to suggest your own books to nominate. And so I'm now making these videos, especially as a way for me to encourage myself to read a little bit of front list in genres that appeal to me, or especially appeal to me, throughout the year, and then hopefully maybe they'll show up, or some of them could show up on the Goodreads Choice Awards. We'll see. They're not always buzzy enough for that. So I hope you're all doing well with your reading. You know, for my fellow BookTube prize judges, I talked about, you know, being halfway through, but it's more like being 3/4 of the way through by now. And so I hope your reading is going smoothly so that we can all make that deadline. Who knows, maybe some of you already have. I have not yet. And for the rest of you, I hope your reading, wherever it takes you, is going well. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.